People called George Strait the king of country music. George Strait earned his right to fight for the title because of years of being good at music, working hard, and the fact that it showed the world real tough country music and people loved it. He has the record of being the 12th best-selling album recording artist in the U.S. He sold over 70 million records across the country and more than 120 million records around the world. This makes him one of the best-selling music artists of all time. It is no wonder he is now a famous person in country music for many years. But even though his career went well, Strait has had to deal with some hard times in his personal life and family. Some of those hard times are shown in the sad details about his son. Let's take a look at the life of George Strait and the shocking truth about his son's life. George Strait was born on May 18, 1952 in a small town in Texas called Poteet. He grew up in a small town called Pearsall, which was in southern Texas. His dad, John Strait, was a math teacher at a middle school and also ran a 2,000-acre ranch that had been in the family for a long time. When George was younger, his parents split up when he was in elementary school. He and his brother Buddy were raised by their dad, and from a young age they helped out with ranch work. The two boys spent quite a lot of time on the ranch learning the values of the country West. It was at Pearsall High, George's high school, that he began his music journey. He was in a rock band called the Statics, and according to George, they were all about the Beatles. The Beatles were big. I listened to them a lot and that whole bunch of groups that were popular then. George also played in a few other rock bands during high school. Even though he wasn't the best at playing the guitar, and country music wasn't even a big part of his music at the time. After going to Southwest Texas State University for a year, George married his high school sweetheart Norma in a secret wedding. Then he joined the U.S. Army in 1971. While he was in Hawaii, he practiced playing the guitar and singing, and he started to like country music from artists like Hank Williams, George Jones, Merle Haggard, and especially Bob Wills, who was known for Western swing music. In 1973, while he was still in the military, he joined his first country music band at the Army base. After George finished his time in the Army in 1975, he went back to Southwest Texas State University and got a degree in agriculture in 1979. While he was at the university, he joined a country band called Stony Ridge after he saw their flyer at school. He changed the band's name to the Ace in the Hole Band and became the lead singer. They played shows regularly at clubs near the campus. They played at different bars in South and Central Texas, even as far as Huntsville and Houston. They became popular locally and got toopin' for big acts like the Texas Playboys. They got the chance to record some songs George wrote, like That Don't Change the Way I Feel About You and I Can't Go On Dying Like This, for a small label in Houston called D Records. Unfortunately, the songs didn't become very famous, so George kept working on his family's ranch during the day to earn extra money. While George kept playing with his band, he had no connections in the music industry. But his friend Irv Woolsey, who ran a bar where George's band performed, worked for a big record label before opening his bar. Woolsey convinced some people from Nashville to come to Texas and hear George and his band play. They liked the music but thought the band's Western swing sound wouldn't sell well, so they left without offering a deal. George himself went on many trips to Nashville, trying to get a record deal, and was turned down by every label because, just like those who had come to watch him, the big shots in the industry weren't sure about his traditional style in a market that was more into a polished image and pop country sound at the time. With his music not getting the attention he wanted in Nashville, George thought about quitting music. Not long after, he was offered a job designing cattle pens and was going to take it. He even told his husband he was leaving, but his wife talked him into giving music one more year. Soon after, a major label, MCA, signed George to a record contract in February 1981. The terms of the contract were that they would start with just one song, and if the song did well, they would think about making an album and offer him a longer contract. After George released his song Unwound in 1981, it became popular and reached number 6 on the Hot Country Songs chart in Billboard magazine. This success led MCA to offer him a longer contract, marking the start of his career as a professional musician. This opened the door to a successful music career, and his Ace in the Hole Band stuck with him, backing him up as he started his solo career. Over the next 10 years, George released more than 12 albums, each of which sold over 1 million copies. Right after his first honky-tonk album, Straight Country, in 1981, he came out with Straight from the Heart in 1982, which had his first #1 country hit, Foolhardy Memory. Critics really liked the album Straight Country because it was different from the popular pop-style country music at the time. Following that, George had 17 #1 hits, with 5 in a row from 1983 to 1984 from albums like Right or Wrong and Does Fort Worth Ever Cross Your Mind. Also, George started performing at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo in 1983 when Eddie Rabbitt got sick. He's been performing there regularly ever since, with over 20 shows, and more than 1 million fans attending. In 1985, he won the CMA Award for Best Male Vocalist and put out his first greatest hits album that same year. His album Something Special hit #1 and included the hit The Chair. George won the CMA Vocalist of the Year again in 1986 and released his fourth #1 album. But while everything was going right with his career, 1986 turned out to be a terrible year for George and his wife Norma. The couple already had 2 kids. Their first child, Jenifer, was born on October 6, 1972. Their son, George Harvey Strait Jr., known as Bubba, was born in 1981. However, tragedy struck the family when their 13-year-old daughter Jenifer died in a car accident in '86. She was a passenger in a car driven by Gregory Wilson Allen, 18, from Staples, Texas. The accident was caused by driving too fast and not handling the car right, which made the vehicle flip over. Jenifer, who was not wearing a seatbelt, was partially thrown out and died right away. Following this heartbreaking event, George limited his interactions with the media. He stopped doing interviews and chose not to discuss Jenifer's death for a year after the tragedy. Getting publicity by chatting up the press meant little to him. He explained the situation, saying, "I got even more private after I lost my daughter. That's when I really shut things down. I didn't feel like talking to anybody that wasn't really close to me. I had the attitude that nothing worse could probably happen, and so this is the way I'm going to do things." To deal with this tragedy, George couldn't let his deep sadness stop him from performing. He kept making music and had 11 songs that reached #1 in a row. These songs started with Nobody in His Right Mind Would Have Left Her in 1986 and ended with Ace in the Hole in 1989. All these songs were part of albums that reached #1 on the country music charts. His album Oceanfront Property was the first country album ever to start at #1 on the charts. George finished the '80s by winning the CMA Entertainer of the Year award in 1989 and won it again the following year. He started the '90s by releasing his 10th album, Livin' It Up, in 1990. This album had 2 songs that reached #1, like Love Without End Amen and I've Come to Expect It From You. Both of these songs stayed at the top spot for 5 weeks. The following year he released Chill of an Early Fall, which also got good reviews. Entertainment Weekly mentioned that this album showed a change for George, moving away from his usual style to try new things. It had hits like If I Know Me and You Know Me Better Than That, but his streak of 31 top 10 hits ended with his cover of Lovesick Blues, which only reached #24. Despite this, the album reached #4 on the charts, breaking his run of 5 top charting albums. Then in 1992, Holding My Own was released. Although it didn't have any #1 hits, it did have 2 songs in the top 5. Later that year, George started acting in movies with Pure Country. He sang many popular songs for the movie, like I Cross My Heart, Heartland, Where the Sidewalk Ends, and The King of Broken Hearts. In 1995, he released a special collection called Straight Out of the Box with 4 discs, which sold over 5 million copies. Until now, Straight Out of the Box is the best-selling box set ever in country music history. In the late 1990s, George put out some great albums like Blue Clear Sky in 1996, Carrying Your Love With Me in 1997, and One Step at a Time in 1998. He finished the '90s with the album Always Never the Same in 1999. It reached #2 on the country charts and also made it to #6 on the Billboard 200. Just like his successful Pure Country album, critics had mixed feelings about the album, but Entertainment Weekly said that, by this point in his career, George could take even the lightest material and make it a hit on the radio with his style and grace. In total, George had 17 #1 hits on the Billboard Country Airplay charts in the '90s, setting him up for continued success in the new century. Then, in September 2000, his album called George Strait came out with hit songs like Go On, If It's Going to Rain, and She Took the Wind from His Sails. These songs were very popular with country music fans. George's whole album went platinum. That year, he received the National Medal of the Arts from President George W. Bush. By 2005, his Somewhere Down in Texas album was so popular that a song from A Good News, Bad News, which featured Lee Ann Womack, won the CMA Award for Musical Event of the Year. A year later, in October, George celebrated his 30th year in the music world by releasing a new album called It Just Comes Natural. The album included 15 new songs, 2 of which were co-written by George's close friend and songwriter Dean Dillon. Critics gave the album positive reviews. USA Today praised George for consistently delivering high-quality music effortlessly. Another review stated, if ever there was a natural in country music, it's George Strait. In 2007, George's song Wrapped became a hit, reaching the #1 spot on the media-based 24/7 country music charts. This achievement marked George's 55th #1 single. Between January and April of that same year, he performed as the main act in a 23-show arena tour. During this tour, he shared the stage with country music icon Ronnie Milsap and rising star Taylor Swift. Clearly, George was still a big name in music. A year later, he released Troubadour, which went straight to the top of the country album charts. The first song from the album I Saw God Today also reached #1 on the country charts. George won 2 CMA awards this year, one for Album of the Year and the other for Single of the Year. In 2009, he got a Grammy Award for Troubadour and was given the Artist of the Decade Award by the Academy of Country Music. In September 2012, George announced that his Cowboy Rides Away tour, coinciding with their release of his album, Love Is Everything, in May 2013 would be his last, and when his single, Give It All We Got, Tonight reached #1 in 2013, he had gathered 60 #1 hits. With this feat, he beat Conway Twitty's record for the most #1 hits on Billboard's Hot Country Songs chart, surpassing Twitty's 40 with his record 60. George now held the record for the most #1 songs on all charts by any artist in any music genre. However, he wasn't only famous for his many #1 songs. George was also well known for his unique tours, which included a 360-degree setup and festival-styled arrangements. In late 2013, during the tour, he won the Country Music Association's Entertainer of the Year award for the third time in his career. On January 9, 2014, he started the second part of his tour. The tour included performances by Jason Aldean, Miranda Lambert, Little Big Town, Tim McGraw, and many others. All these artists came together for the tour's final show in Arlington, Texas on June 7th in front of a crowd of 104,293 fans. This was his last concert for the Cowboy Rides Away tour at AT&T Stadium, and it set a new record for being the largest indoor concert in North America in 3 decades, beating the attendance of the Rolling Stones concert in 1981 at the New Orleans Superdome. The concert also broke the record for the highest earnings at a single country concert, bringing in $194 million. George made history on June 15, 2024, by having the most fans ever at a U.S. concert for a solo performance. He achieved this at Kyle Field at Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas, with a massive crowd of 110,905 fans. This beat the previous record held by the Grateful Dead, who had 107,019 fans at their 1977 show in New Jersey. The event also set a new attendance record at Texas A&M's Kyle Field, surpassing the previous record set during a Texas A&M football game against Ole Miss on October 11, 2014, with 110,163 fans. One thing that fascinated fans about George was the fact that he wasn't just a cowboy in his songs, he lived the cowboy life for real. Manny already knew he was born and raised on his father's ranch, but some didn't realize that he spent a lot of time on his own ranch in South Texas riding horses, raising cattle, and competing in team roping at rodeos. His ranching and team roping were a big part of his life outside of music. He raised steers specifically for the George Strait Team Roping Classic, a big team roping event he started with his brother Buddy over 2 decades ago, and it had been noted that the singer raised horses and cattle because he loved it, not as a commercial venture. George's love for ranching had been passed down from his father, and George was more than happy to find out that his son George Jr. loved the activity too. They spent days together running the ranch. George, also called Bubba by close family members, had also become good at roping, following in his father's footsteps. He did well in high school rodeos in Wason, the Texas A&M University rodeo team, and George couldn't be prouder, as he declared, "I enjoy doing everything with my son." Bubba started competing in rodeos while at college. He then became a roper with the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, as reported by the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. He took part in various events, such as the 2004's 22nd annual George Strait Team Roping Classic. However, he had to stop roping for a while after he almost cut off his index finger in an accident with a lasso. Rodeo, a big part of the Strait family. George himself had organized the Team Roping Classic for 35 years, finishing the event in 2017. He once shared with the Team Roping Journal that team roping was his passion, and his proudest moment in the sport was winning with his son. He stated, "It's the greatest feeling in the world to watch my son win a roping, or even to just watch him compete. I'm sure I'm way more nervous than he is when I'm just watching. Bubba and I have been fortunate to win a couple of buckles together, and that, my friends, is the ultimate." Even though he prefers to stay away from the public eye, Bubba is also involved in the music industry. When he was young, his voice was featured on Heartland, the opening track from George's movie, Pure Country, in 1992. As he grew up, he collaborated with his father on songwriting, contributing to tracks like Living for the Weekend and Out of Sight Out of Mind from the album Twang, released in 2009. Bubba continued to co-write songs for George's following 4 studio albums. Here for a Good Time in 2011, Love is Everything in 2013, Cold Beer Conversation in 2015, and Honky Tonk Time Machine in 2019. Even George admitted the fact that his son had helped get back to writing. Bubba really got me back into writing. That's been a great experience for me to be able to watch him grow and blossom as a songwriter. He's loving it. He plays guitar and he's doing really well. It's been such a blessing to work with him at this stage of my career. Bubba had always accompanied his father to various events, such as the 2007 Country Music Hall of Fame Medallion Ceremony, the 44th Annual Academy of Country Music Awards in 2009, where George was recognized as Artist of the Decade, and the 50th Annual ASCAP Country Music Awards in Nashville in 2012. In 2014, Bubba joined his dad on stage in Arlington, Texas for a show during the final stop of George's 2-year The Cowboy Rides Away tour. The father-son duo performed Arkansas Dave, a song he wrote himself. After that concert, George stopped touring and the performance was recorded for CMT's George Strait The Cowboy Rides Away live concert special. Bubba, however, hasn't planned to stop writing songs for his dad anytime soon, as he finds joy in working with his father. Although he doesn't use social media, his wife, realtor Tamara Strait, often posts pictures of them on Instagram. They had met in 2005 at a San Antonio Spurs game where Tamara was a silver dancer. They got engaged in 2010 and tied the knot that December. The couple has 2 kids, George Harvey Strait III, born in 2012, and Jillian Louise Strait, born in 2016. Tamara once shared on Instagram, "Being married is the toughest thing I've ever done right before being a parent. It's not always smooth sailing, but I'm so fortunate to have a husband who loves me no matter what, supports me in my work, and most importantly walks in faith with me." In fact, Harvey has joined his grandpa on stage at the Houston rodeo show where they sang George's song God and country music together. Later at Game 6 of the 2022 World Series, both of he and his sister, along with their mother and Grandma Norma, were present. Grandpa George had sported a Houston Astros hat and jersey, while he and Harvey did the play ball call. In 2022, George mentioned to Cowboys and Indians that his grandson played drums for a bit, and might return to it later, but currently he's into baseball, hunting, and fishing. George also noted that his granddaughter has sung a little, sounding pretty good. While it's too early to predict their paths, George expressed his support for whatever they choose to pursue. George Strait's journey from a small-town boy in Texas to a global country music icon is one of determination, passion, and resilience. Despite personal tragedies and industry challenges, he never wavered in his pursuit of his dreams. Alongside his legendary career, George's close bond with his family, particularly with his son Bubba, has been a testament to his grounded nature and values. Through decades of chart-topping hits and a life rooted in ranching and rodeo, George Strait has truly become a beloved icon of country music, if not its true king.